In the Song of Ice and Fire world, there's one dragon that's so wild and fierce that even the Targaryens are terrified of it. A dragon that so far hasn't been in HBO's House of the Dragon show. But trust me, if it was, you would definitely know about it. In Season 3, we've seen Sheepstealer, a wild dragon who is somehow claimed by Rhaena in the show. In the books, it's a little different. Sheepstealer is claimed by a character called Nettles, who again, so far isn't in and probably won't be in HBO's TV show. But the dragon this video is mainly about isn't Sheepstealer. The dragon I want to talk about is called the Cannibal, a brutal name given to a dark and devastating dragon simply because, yes, you guessed it, it ate its own kind. A dragon that eats other dragons. You can see why the Targaryens were scared. The Cannibal was a wild dragon that lived on Dragonstone before and during the Dance of the Dragons, which is the saga we're seeing unfold on House of the Dragon. It would be so cool to actually see Cannibal, but it's unlikely now on the show simply because of CGI budgets. They're not going to spend loads of money on a dragon that doesn't really affect the main story, though they are changing a few things from the books that are a bit rubbish. So I reckon they should change things up a little bit to make a cool standalone episode where, I don't know, Daemon is trying to track down a massive dragon that eats other dragons. I personally think that would be pretty sick. Let's not get ahead of ourselves though, that's not going to happen. But let's talk about him anyway because it's super interesting and dragons are cool AF. As stated in the book Fire and Blood, the Cannibal was black as coal, with menacing green eyes. He was the largest and oldest of the three completely wild dragons dwelling on Dragonstone. The other two being Sheepstealer, who we do see on House of the Dragon, the one that needs to see a dentist, and another dragon called Grey Ghost, who we'll talk about in a little bit. The small folk of the island called him the Cannibal because he would practice cannibalism, feasting on dead dragons, newborn dragons, and even dragon eggs. He just loved a little snack. You can't blame him for having a little snack now and then. Cannibal isn't mentioned in any of the main Song of Ice and Fire books, but is mentioned in both the Fire and Blood and the World of Ice and Fire books, the latter being kind of like an encyclopedia of the world and universe. A really cool read if you're interested in George R.R. Martin's world. As the Cannibal is jet black with piercing green eyes, some in the fandom have noted that these are the two colours of the warring sides of the Targaryen family in the Dance of the Dragons, with Rhaenyra's blacks going up against the Hightower greens. That could be a cool poetic thing, but I think it's probably just a coincidence, as a black dragon with green eyes is objectively a cool colour pairing. According to myth and legend, Cannibal was on Westeros before the Targaryens arrived, meaning that he could well be over 200 years old during the Dance of the Dragons. The Targaryens brought over dragon eggs from Valyria to Westeros, as well as actual living dragons like Balerion the Black Dread. By the way, if you ever wondered how big Balerion actually was, especially compared to Daenerys' dragon Drogon, I've got a video of that on my channel too. So check it out after this one. As Cannibal was likely older than all of the other dragons that we see the Targaryens flying on, that means he was probably much larger too. Usually the older the dragon, the bigger it is. Especially it being a wild dragon that wasn't confined to something like the Dragon Pit. Meaning that Cannibal would be even larger than Aemon's Vhagar. A wild dragon bigger than Vhagar is a terrifying thought. When the Blacks called dragon seeds to attempt to bond with dragons so that they could have more riders on their side, none of them dared disturb Cannibal because of his reputation. And his cave was supposedly filled with the bones of those who had tried and failed in the past. Some interesting quotes that are highlighted on the wiki of Ice and Fire about this beast of a dragon are, "If we do not trouble him, the cannibal will not trouble us." And also, none of the dragon seeds were fool enough to disturb the Cannibal. The Cannibal's most gruesome documented moment was when a character called Silver Denys tried to claim Sheepstealer and had his arm torn off. Cannibal then descended on the scene, drove Sheepstealer away, and devoured Silver Denys and his sons as they tried to save him. Cannibal mostly refrained from killing people unless they disturbed him, and he never ever accepted a rider. The Cannibal is also the only recorded dragon known to regard his own species as a source of food. Some dragons took down other dragons and maybe took a chunk out of them, but they didn't really see them as a source of food like the Cannibal did. Cannibal hid in one or multiple of the deep dark caves around the volcano Dragonmont on Dragonstone. We see Sheepstealer hiding in a cave in the latest season of House of the Dragon when Daemon's dragon Caraxes goes off-piste as it can sense another, eventually leading him to Sheepstealer and his daughter Rhaena. One cool moment mentioned in Fire and Blood that could be in House of the Dragon is when one particular character dies. I won't say who it is is, for spoiler reasons, it said that the cannibal flew overhead as a salute. A moving touch, but most likely made up as a story as time went on. It says, from all we know of the cannibal, he would have been more apt to eat the corpse than salute it. Which is quite funny. However, if this does happen in the show, and you've watched this video, you can be like, that dragon that flew overhead, that was probably the cannibal. Could be a cool little Easter egg. But what happened to the cannibal, I hear you ask? We don't really know. No one has found a carcass, and we don't know exactly how long dragons can live for in this world, so it's entirely possible that the cannibal could still be alive during a Game of Thrones. It's also worth mentioning the colour of the cannibal again. Being jet black, there are only 2 other dragons in the Song of Ice and Fire universe that we know were black as well. 2 pretty important dragons. One being Balerion the Black Dread, and the second one being Drogon, Daenerys' dragon. Now they're like the 2 main character dragons in this whole universe. So the cannibal being another black dragon, again, is it just another coincidence, or does it mean something more? After the Dance of the Dragons, the cannibal does kind of just disappear. Again, adding to the theory that it's some kind of metaphor for the Dance of the Dragons, the fight between the blacks and the greens. He's there, and then when it's all over, he's not. Going all the way back to when Cannibal potentially landed on Dragonstone years and years and years before the Targaryens did, some people have theories as to why the cannibal is the way that he is. It's possible that it's even from some other line of dragons. If the cannibal was from a different lineage of dragon altogether, that might also explain why it's so antagonistic to the other dragons. Or perhaps even simply just from a different family that lived on Dragonstone, that bond to one rider and one rider only in their lifetime, and that is why he hated the Targaryens. It's something that we will likely never have a definitive answer to, but it's fun to theorize, isn't it? Cannibal will always just be that really scary wild dragon that even the Targaryens were afraid of. The other wild dragon that I mentioned before, Grey Ghost, was pretty cool too and worth talking about. It was a pale grey dragon residing in a smoking vent high on the eastern side of Dragonmont. He earned his name for his solitary nature, shyly avoiding men and their works, remaining unseen for years at a time. He could sometimes be glimpsed hunting for fish in the narrow sea. And similarly to the cannibal, Grey Ghost never accepted a rider. Sheepstealer, as I previously mentioned, did take a rider, so was the only one out of the 3 wild dragons to do so. Grey Ghost did pass away eventually. In 130 AC, the crew of a ship saw Grey Ghost and another dragon fighting in the sky above Dragonmont. Grey Ghost was slain in the struggle. Many wrongly assumed it was the cannibal who took Grey Ghost down, for obvious reasons, but it was actually Sunfire, Aegon II's dragon. After the Dance of the Dragons was all done, leaving the realm and the Targaryen dynasty needing to rebuild, there were only 4 dragons left alive on Westeros. Sheepstealer was one, and the cannibal was another. A terrifying dragon who I would love to see more of in either the books or the show, to be honest. The cannibal, what a cool dragon. Do you have a favourite dragon in the Song of Ice and Fire universe? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one, and if you're still here, hit that like button, won't you?